Good morning. Joshua here with Truth and Mercy. It's been a while. Just had a thought I wanted to share with you. The church was never meant to be this big. Churches were never meant to be this big. I've seen so many churches lately engage in building projects that result in massive mortgages, strain on the financial wherewithal of their people, conflict in the congregations, and one in my own hometown actually. I think it's interesting. They tore down this historic old building, this beautiful old church sanctuary. It's got to be 100 years old, and they're going to build a new building because they're just bursting at the seams. They're growing. The pastor told me they had to tear it down because their church is so big, and they're building one pretty much the same size, best I can. But it got me thinking. None of this would be necessary if people would just follow the New Testament model. It's really that simple. I mean, if you look at the New Testament, there's nothing wrong per se with a church having a building, but that's not exactly what we find in the New Testament, not even close. What we find is that the church gathered in homes, in small groups. These were assemblies that could one another, as it's sometimes called, or they could get together and live life together, as it is also a term overly used, but it's a good one nonetheless. They could do life together. They could share in one another's burdens, as the Bible puts it. And that is not possible when you have congregations of 50, 75, 100, 500, 1,000. And yes, I said 50. I know a lot of people talk about mega churches being the problem. No, churches are the problem. Churches as we know it are the problem. We were never intended to have big buildings where 50 and 100 people could get together and pitch into a mortgage and sit in a pew and not know anything about the person sitting behind them and listen to one man give you his opinion about the Bible. We were meant to come together with all the chairs facing one another so we could each have a voice. All the men in the assembly, read 1 Corinthians, all men have a voice in the assembly, and they should use it. The Bible says, in fact, if you're going to limit it because of tongues, if tongues adds an element of confusion, then only limit it to 2 or 3, and don't forbid to speak in tongues. So even in a situation where you've got something like foreign tongues being spoken, and it's a bit confusing because someone has to interpret, well, then only let 2 or 3. In that special case, limit it to just 2 or 3 speakers in a meeting. That should be the exception. When there's only 2 or 3 men who stand up and present something that God has laid on their heart. Now, you can't do that if someone's given a 30